Welcome back to True Stories of Kindness. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from today. Now let's dive into a story that reminds us how a single moment of kindness can change someone's life forever. In the echoing halls of Chicago's United Center, long after the roar of the crowds had faded and the bright lights had dimmed, Benjamin Thomas worked quietly in the shadows. At 16, he spent his evenings helping his father, Lucas Thomas, the building's head janitor for the past 20 years. While other teenagers were hanging out with friends or playing video games, Benjamin was learning the value of hard work. One mop stroke at a time, the vast arena held a different kind of magic after hours. Instead of thunderous applause and squeaking sneakers, there was only the gentle swish of Benjamin's mop across the concrete floors and the distant hum of cleaning equipment. The building seemed to breathe with memories of greatness, of victories, and defeats, of dreams both realized and shattered. Benjamin had grown up in these halls, watching from afar as giants of the game came and went. His father's position meant they could occasionally catch glimpses of games from the maintenance corridors, stealing moments of joy between their duties. But tonight was just another quiet Tuesday evening, or so Benjamin thought. The young man's world was small but well-defined. School during the day, helping his father at night, and precious moments in between when he could practice basketball on the weathered hoop behind their modest apartment building. Basketball wasn't just a game for Benjamin. It was an escape, a dream he held close to his heart, but rarely spoke about. Lucas Thomas had raised Benjamin alone since his wife's passing 8 years ago. The janitor's salary wasn't much, but he had managed to provide a stable home for his son, teaching him the dignity of honest work and the importance of education. The United Center wasn't just their workplace. It was a second home, a place where father and son worked side by side, sharing stories and dreams in the quiet hours of the night. Benjamin's routine was interrupted when he heard footsteps echoing through the corridor. This was unusual. At this hour, the building was typically empty except for the cleaning crew. He continued mopping, trying to appear focused on his task, but his curiosity was piqued. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by the familiar sound of a basketball being dribbled. Benjamin's heart rate quickened. He knew that sound intimately from countless hours of practice. He glanced up just as a tall figure rounded the corner, basketball in hand. The young man's breath caught in his throat. Even in the dimmed lights of the maintenance area, there was no mistaking who it was. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player to ever grace the game, was walking down the same corridor Benjamin had cleaned thousands of times. Jordan moved with that characteristic grace that made him seem more spirit than man, the basketball an extension of his being. He was dressed simply in training gear, likely having stayed late after practice. Benjamin tried to make himself invisible, pressing against the wall with his mop. But something about the young man caught Jordan's attention. The basketball legend paused, his eyes taking in the scene. A teenager with a mop, worn sneakers, and a Chicago Bulls t-shirt that had seen better days. But what caught Jordan's attention wasn't the boy's appearance. It was the calluses on his hands, the quiet dignity in his stance, and the way his eyes kept drifting to the basketball. "You work here?" Jordan's voice was casual, friendly, carrying none of the intimidating power he displayed on the court. Benjamin nodded, his voice temporarily lost somewhere between his heart and his throat. His father had taught him to be respectful but confident, to look people in the eye when they spoke to him. "Yes, sir. I help my father. He's the head janitor." Something in Benjamin's response seemed to interest Jordan. Maybe it was the lack of starstruck babbling, or perhaps the simple honesty in the young man's voice. The legend's eyes moved to the mop, then back to Benjamin's face. "Lucas's son?" Jordan asked, surprising Benjamin with the knowledge of his father's name. "I've seen him around. Good man," Benjamin's chest swelled with pride. The greatest basketball player in the world knew his father's name, knew he was a good man. The simple recognition meant more than any autograph could have. "Thank you, sir." "He is," Benjamin managed to reply, his voice steadier now. Jordan bounced. The ball once, twice, his eyes never leaving Benjamin's face. "You play?" The question was simple, but it carried the weight of dreams in it. Benjamin hesitated, not wanting to seem presumptuous. "When I can. Behind our apartment building, mostly." Something shifted in Jordan's expression, a recognition, perhaps, of a younger version of himself in this humble janitor's son. He had started from modest beginnings too, building his legend one practice session at a time. "I noticed your hands," Jordan said, gesturing with the ball. "Those aren't just from mopping. You've been handling a ball a lot." Benjamin looked down at his hands, suddenly self-conscious of the calluses earned from countless hours of shooting, dribbling and practicing whenever he could steal a moment. "Yes, sir. I practice whenever I'm not working or studying." The response seemed to please Jordan. He glanced at his watch, then down the empty corridor as if making a decision. What happened next would change Benjamin's life forever, though he didn't know it yet. "Got time for a quick one-on-one?" Jordan asked, his voice casual but his eyes intense, studying Benjamin's reaction. The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. Benjamin's mind raced through all his responsibilities, the floors that still needed mopping, the trash that needed collecting. But then he remembered his father's words. "Sometimes life gives you moments, son. The trick is recognizing them. When they come, Benjamin glanced down the corridor, thinking of his father. As if reading his mind, Jordan spoke again. "I'll clear it with your dad." "What do you say?" In that moment, Benjamin Thomas, the janitor's son who practiced basketball, in the shadows of greatness, stood at a crossroads. His answer would lead to an evening that would impact not just his life, but the lives of countless others who would later hear this story. The mop stood forgotten against the wall as Benjamin found his voice. "Yes, sir, I'd like that very much." Jordan's smile was legendary, but this one was different, not for the cameras or the fans, but for a young man who reminded him of his own humble beginnings. "Well then, let's see what you've got, young man." As they walked toward the practice court, Benjamin's heart thundered in his chest. He didn't know it yet, but this chance encounter would become much more than just a game of basketball. It would become a story of kindness, recognition, and the power of taking a moment to see the potential in others. The practice court of the United Center was different at night. The usual chaos of bouncing balls and shouting coaches was replaced by an almost sacred silence, broken only by the soft hum of emergency lights. For Benjamin Thomas, walking onto that court felt like entering hallowed ground. Michael Jordan moved with casual confidence toward the ball rack, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. "Let's warm up a bit first," he said, tossing a ball to Benjamin. "Show me your form." Benjamin caught the ball, its familiar texture both comforting and suddenly strange in this surreal moment. His hands trembled slightly as he squared up to the free throw line. Years of practice behind his apartment building had ingrained the motion into his muscles. Bend, focus, release. The ball arced through the air, a perfect parabola that swished through the net without touching the rim. Jordan's eyebrows raised slightly, an expression of genuine surprise crossing his face. "Nice," he said simply, but the word carried weight. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Benjamin retrieved the ball, his confidence growing slightly. "YouTube videos of your games, sir. I study them whenever I can. That and lots of practice." Jordan nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "How many shots do you take each day?" 500, sir, before school if I can, but usually after work. My dad got me a spotlight for the hoop behind our building last Christmas." Something flickered in Jordan's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the kind of dedication that had shaped his own legacy. 500 shots a day, working nights, and still in school, that's not easy. Benjamin shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. Nothing worth doing is easy, sir. That's what my dad always says. Your dad's a wise man, Jordan replied, moving to grab another ball. But tonight let's drop the sir. Call me Michael. For the next few minutes they took turns shooting, Jordan offering small adjustments to Benjamin's already solid form. Elbow in a bit more or hold your follow-through longer. Each suggestion was delivered with the precision of a master craftsman sharing trade secrets. As they warmed up, Jordan asked questions about Benjamin's life, his school, his dreams, his mother. The young man found himself opening up, sharing things he rarely talked about with anyone besides his father. She loved basketball too, Benjamin said quietly, speaking of his mother. She's the one who taught me to dribble. Dad says she never missed a Bulls game on TV, even when she was sick. Jordan listened intently, his expression thoughtful. Some people live on through the passion they inspire in others, he said after a moment. Sounds like your mother's spirit is alive in every shot you take. The words touched something deep in Benjamin's heart, a truth he had felt but never articulated. His eyes stung slightly, but he blinked the emotion away, focusing on the ball. In his hands, ready to play, Jordan asked, a competitive glint entering his eyes. Let's make it interesting, not points, life lessons. For each basket you make, I'll share something I've learned about success. For each one I make, you tell me about your dreams. Deal? Benjamin nodded, understanding that this was about more than basketball. Deal. What followed was unlike any game Benjamin had ever played. Jordan moved with his trademark grace, but he wasn't playing to dominate. He was playing to teach. Each move was a lesson, each fake a demonstration, each shot an opportunity to share wisdom. When Benjamin managed to score his first basket, a well-executed jump shot over Jordan's outstretched hand, the legend smiled. Earned that one. Here's your first lesson. Talent is given, but greatness is earned in the hours nobody's watching, like those 500 shots you take every day. The game continued, a dance of mentorship disguised as competition. Jordan scored easily, but each time he did, he drew Benjamin out, asking about his hopes, his fears, his ambitions. I want to play college basketball, Benjamin admitted after Jordan sank a fadeaway jumper. But sometimes it feels impossible. We can't afford the camps or private coaches that other players have. Jordan's next shot rimmed out deliberately, giving Benjamin another chance. When the young man scored, Jordan shared another piece of wisdom. The biggest obstacle isn't other players or circumstances. It's the voice in your head that says you can't. Silence that voice, and nothing is impossible. As they played, Benjamin began to understand that this wasn't just about basketball. Each exchange was building something, teaching something. Jordan would demonstrate a move, then let Benjamin try it, offering corrections and encouragement. Why are you doing this? Benjamin finally asked during a water break, the question that had been burning in his mind spilling out. Jordan studied him for a moment before answering. Because 20 years ago I was you, not a janitor's son, but a kid with dreams bigger than his circumstances. Someone took the time to see my potential, to teach me. Sometimes that's all any of us need, someone to see us, really see us. The game resumed, but something had shifted. Benjamin played with renewed purpose, each movement a declaration of his dreams. When he managed to steal the ball and score on a breakaway layup, Jordan's approval was immediate. That's what I'm talking about. You saw the opportunity and didn't hesitate. Life's like that. Sometimes you've got to grab your moment with both hands. As their game wound down, Jordan had one final lesson to share. He handed the ball to Benjamin at the three-point line. Last shot. Show me what you've learned. Benjamin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He remembered every lesson, every correction, every word of encouragement. The shot left his hands with perfect rotation, sailing through the air as time seemed to slow down. The swish of the net was the sweetest sound he'd ever heard. Jordan's smile was proud, genuine. That shot right there, that's who you are, not a janitor's son, not a kid with limited resources. You're a player who just hit a clutch shot under pressure. Remember that feeling. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both understanding that something special had just transpired. More than just a game, it had been a passing of wisdom, a recognition of potential, a moment of pure human connection. Your father should be proud, Jordan said finally, not just of your basketball skills, but of who you are. That kind of character, working nights, helping your dad, never giving up on your dreams, that's rarer than any natural talent. Benjamin felt the weight of those words settle into his heart, knowing they would stay with him forever. Thank you, Michael, not just for the game, but for seeing me. Jordan reached into his bag and pulled out a pair of basketball shoes, the latest model of his signature line. These might help with those 500 shots a day, but remember, it's not about the shoes. As Benjamin held the shoes, still warm from Jordan's bag, he understood that their value wasn't in their price tag or their brand. Their true worth was in what they represented: recognition, belief, and the power of being seen. What Benjamin didn't know yet was that this night would become more than just a memory. It would become a turning point, a story that would inspire others, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come not from grand gestures, but from taking the time to truly see someone's potential. The walk back to the maintenance area felt surreal to Benjamin, each step echoing with the weight of what had just transpired. The shoes in his hands, not just any shoes, but Michael Jordan's personal pair, seemed to pulse with possibility. But it wasn't the shoes themselves that had his mind racing. It was the words, the lessons, the moments of connection that had transformed an ordinary Tuesday evening into something extraordinary. Lucas Thomas was exactly where Benjamin expected to find him, methodically working through his evening checklist in the small maintenance office. When he looked up and saw his son's face, he knew immediately that something significant had happened. 20 years of raising Benjamin had taught him to read every subtle shift in his son's expression. "Dad," Benjamin started, his voice thick with emotion, "you're never going to believe..." But before he could finish, Michael Jordan himself appeared in the doorway behind him. Lucas stood immediately, surprise written across his features, but there was something else there too. A father's pride as he watched Jordan place a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "Mr. Thomas," Jordan said, his voice carrying the same respect he'd shown on the court, "you've got an exceptional young man here. I hope you don't mind that I borrowed him for a while." Lucas found his voice, years of quiet dignity evident in his measured response. "Not at all, Mr. Jordan, though I admit I'm curious about what brought this about." Jordan's smile was genuine as he looked between father and son. "I saw something familiar in Benjamin, the same hunger I had at his age, the same dedication. But more than that, I saw the character you've helped build in him. That's rarer than any natural talent." For the next half hour, in that small maintenance office that smelled of cleaning supplies and old coffee, Michael Jordan sat with Lucas and Benjamin Thomas. He shared what he'd observed during their game, but more importantly, he spoke about the values he saw reflected in both father and son: hard work, dedication, humility, and unwavering determination. "You know, Lucas," Jordan said, leaning forward in his chair, "every night when I leave practice, this place is spotless. For years, I've noticed that level of excellence, that attention to detail. Now I see where Benjamin gets it from." Lucas's eyes glistened slightly at the recognition of his life's work. "We do our best, Mr. Jordan, I've always believed that how you do anything is how you do everything." "Exactly," Jordan agreed, his expression earnest. "And that's what I saw in Benjamin tonight. Every shot, every move, every response showed that same commitment to excellence. But he needs more opportunities to develop his talent. What happened next would change the course of Benjamin's life." Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to Lucas. "This is the number for Oliver Wilson, the head coach at my basketball camp. I've already called him. There's a spot for Benjamin this summer, all expenses paid. But more than that, I want him to have access to the practice facility here when it's not in use. With your permission, of course." The magnitude of this offer hung in the air. Access to professional-level training facilities and coaching could transform Benjamin's prospects entirely. Lucas looked at his son, seeing both the boy he'd raised and the man he was becoming. "Benjamin?" Lucas asked, leaving the decision to his son. Benjamin held his father's gaze, understanding the layers of the question. This wasn't just about basketball. It was about responsibility, balance, and staying true to who they were as a family. "I'll still help with work, Dad," Benjamin promised. "Every night. The training can come after." Jordan interjected gently. "Actually, I have a different proposal. Benjamin keeps his focus on school and training, and in return, I'll make sure your maintenance crew gets some extra help. Fair trade?" Lucas started to protest, but Jordan held up his hand. "Consider it an investment in both your futures. Sometimes, Mr. Thomas, accepting help is as important as offering it." The wisdom in those words resonated with Lucas. He'd spent years teaching Benjamin about dignity and work, about standing on his own 2 feet. But perhaps part of that dignity was knowing when to accept an opportunity that could change your life. "There's one condition," Lucas said finally, his voice firm despite the emotion behind it. "Benjamin maintains his grades. Education first, basketball second." Jordan's smile widened. "I couldn't agree more. In fact, let's add another condition. Benjamin has to share what he learns. Sometimes the best way to grow is to help others grow too." The conversation that followed was about more than basketball. They discussed Benjamin's academic interests, his mother's memory, and the importance of balancing dreams with responsibilities. Jordan shared stories from his own journey, not the ones everyone knew from television, but the quiet moments of doubt, struggle, and perseverance that had shaped him. As the evening drew to a close, Jordan had one final surprise. He reached into his bag and pulled out a basketball, not a new one, but the one they'd used during their game. Taking a marker from the maintenance desk, he wrote something on it before handing it to Benjamin. The inscription read, "To Benjamin. Remember, the game is about more than points. It's about who you become while playing it. Keep working hard, dream bigger, and never forget where you came from. Michael Jordan." But the evening's impact wasn't finished. Jordan turned to Lucas with sincere appreciation. "You know, every champion I know had someone behind them who believed in them before anyone else did. For Benjamin, that's you, Mr. Thomas. The long nights, the sacrifices, the lessons in dignity and hard work, that's the foundation everything else builds upon." Lucas Thomas stood straighter, years of quiet pride finding voice in this moment of recognition. "Thank you, Mr. Jordan, not just for this opportunity, but for seeing my son, for seeing us." The maintenance office of the United Center had become something sacred, a place where lives changed, where dreams took flight, where the gap between legend and ordinary people closed in the recognition of shared values and human connection. As Jordan prepared to leave, he had one final piece of wisdom to share. "Benjamin, remember what we talked about on the court. Success isn't just about talent or opportunity. It's about what you do with them. Every day, you make a choice about who you want to become. Make those choices count." The impact of the evening was written in the quiet tears in Lucas's eyes, in the straight set of Benjamin's shoulders, in the way father and son stood together, proud, humble, and ready for whatever came next. They had been seen, truly seen, by someone who could have easily walked past without a second glance. But the true measure of the evening's impact wouldn't be known for years to come. It wasn't just about basketball or opportunities or even dreams. It was about the power of recognition, the importance of seeing potential in others, and the way small moments of kindness could ripple out to touch countless lives. As Benjamin and his father watched Jordan leave, they stood in silence, processing everything that had happened. The basketball in Benjamin's hands, the shoes by his feet, the business card on the desk. These were more than just objects. They were tangible reminders that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as ordinary moments, transformed by extraordinary kindness. 5 years have passed since that transformative night in the United Center and the ripples of Michael. Jordan's act of kindness continued to spread in ways that none of them could have imagined. Benjamin Thomas, now a sophomore playing college basketball at Northwestern University on a full scholarship, has never forgotten the lessons learned during that evening's one-on-one game. The maintenance office, where the story reached its crescendo, has become something of a quiet legend among the United Center staff. Lucas Thomas still works there, maintaining the same high standards he always has, but now he's joined by a rotating crew of young helpers, part of the program that Jordan helped establish that night. Today, Benjamin stands in that same office, looking at the worn basketball displayed in a simple case on his father's desk. The inscription has faded slightly, but the words remain as powerful as ever. He's not here just to visit his father. He's here to continue a tradition that began with Jordan's act of kindness. Every Tuesday evening, when his college schedule permits, Benjamin returns to the United Center. But he's not here to practice or reminisce. He's here to mentor young people who, like him, are growing up in circumstances where dreams seem distant and opportunities scarce. Oliver Martinez, a 14-year-old who helps his mother clean offices in the building, is today's mentee. Like Benjamin 5 years ago, Oliver spends his evenings working instead of playing. And like Benjamin, he harbors dreams that seem bigger than his circumstances. "You know," Benjamin tells Oliver as they walk toward the practice court, 5 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. Working evenings, practicing whenever I could, wondering if anyone would ever see how hard I was trying." Oliver's eyes widen as Benjamin shares his story. Not just the extraordinary encounter with Michael Jordan, but the years of dedication that preceded it. The 500 shots a day, the late-night practices, the balance between work, school, and dreams. "The biggest lesson I learned that night wasn't about basketball," Benjamin explains, passing Oliver a ball. "It was about the power of being seen, really seen, by someone who could have easily walked past. And about what happens when you take that gift and pass it on to others." The program Benjamin helps run, officially called Dream Makers, but known among the maintenance staff's children as the Night Shift League, has already helped dozens of young people like Oliver. Some pursue basketball, others focus on academics or other sports, but all of them learn the same core lessons that Jordan shared with Benjamin that night. Lucas Thomas, watching from his office doorway, sees his son teaching Oliver the same shooting form corrections that Jordan once taught him. But more than that, he sees the continuation of a legacy, not just of basketball skills, but of dignity, hard work, and the importance of lifting others as you rise. The impact of Jordan's kindness that night extended far beyond Benjamin's basketball career. The maintenance crew support program he suggested has evolved into a comprehensive education and mentorship initiative. Workers' children now have access to tutoring, sports training, and perhaps most importantly, people who believe in their potential. Sarah Chen, the daughter of one of the evening shift custodians, recently received a full academic scholarship to MIT. During her acceptance speech at the school's awards ceremony, she mentioned the program that gave her access to advanced math tutoring while her mother worked. "Sometimes," she said, "all it takes is one person to see your potential, to show you that your circumstances don't define your future." For me, that started with a basketball legend who took the time to see a janitor's son, creating a ripple effect that reached all the way to me. The story of that Tuesday night has become more than just a tale of a famous athlete's kindness. It's become a testament to the power of recognition, of taking the time to truly see the potential in others, and of the way small acts of kindness can multiply beyond imagination. Jordan himself has returned to the United Center several times to check on the program's progress. During his last visit, he spent time with the current group of Dreammakers participants, sharing not just basketball tips, but life lessons about perseverance, dignity, and the importance of paying forward every opportunity you receive. What happened that night with Benjamin, Jordan told the group, wasn't just about basketball. It was about recognizing the fire in someone's eyes, the determination in their spirit, and the character in their actions. Each of you has that same fire. The question is, what will you do with it? Benjamin's college coaches often comment on his unusual maturity and leadership qualities. What they don't see are the Tuesday evenings spent in the United Center, passing on the lessons he learned not just from Jordan, but from his father's example of quiet dignity and consistent excellence. The worn basketball in Lucas's office has become something of a talisman for the Dreammakers program. Before each session, the mentees touch it for luck, reading Jordan's inscription about becoming something greater through the game. But the real magic isn't in the ball, it's in the commitment these young people make to their own development and to helping others. Oliver, finishing his first session with Benjamin, understands this as he helps collect the basketballs and clean the court. "It's not just about getting better at basketball, is it?" he asks, showing wisdom beyond his years. Benjamin smiles, remembering asking Jordan a similar question 5 years ago. "No, it's not. It's about becoming someone who can make a difference in others' lives. Someone who remembers to look for potential in unexpected places." The United Center's maintenance corridors, once just passages between tasks, have become corridors of opportunity. The night shift workers now know that their children have chances they never dreamed possible, all because one person took the time to stop, to see potential, and to act on that recognition. Lucas Thomas still keeps the same schedule, still maintains the same high standards, but now he does so with the knowledge that his years of quiet dignity helped create something extraordinary. His son's success isn't measured just in basketball scholarships or college achievements, but in the lives being changed every Tuesday night. As our story draws to a close, it's worth noting that the greatest achievements often don't make headlines. They're found in the quiet moments of recognition, in the choice to stop and truly see another person's potential, in the decision to pass on the kindness you've received. Benjamin Thomas, the janitor's son who played one-on-one with Michael Jordan, didn't just receive an opportunity that night. He received a mission to become someone who could recognize and nurture potential in others. Every Tuesday evening, in the same building where his story began, he fulfills that mission. To those watching this video, we ask, when was the last time you truly saw someone, not just looked at them, but really saw their potential, their dreams, their spirit? Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is the gift of being seen. Share in the comments a time when someone saw your potential, when they took a moment to recognize something in you that perhaps you didn't even see in yourself. Or tell us about a time when you were that person for someone else. Remember, every day presents us with opportunities to be someone's Michael Jordan moment, to be the person who stops, who sees, who acts. Because in the end, the true measure of any success isn't in what we achieve for ourselves, but in how many others we lift up along the way. This is True Stories of Kindness, reminding you that sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come not from grand gestures, but from taking the time to truly see the potential in another human being.